So normally I would be doing this on my camera. I have a nice camera, but I don't have a tripod. So I'm just going to use my laptop camera thing. Okay, so what I usually do to get me in the writing mood is I like to listen to music. I usually pop on Pandora and, let the music kind of guide me and stuff. I write on my bed. That's where I currently am right now, is my bed. Let's get writing. This week usually for these challenges I do a bold letter. I usually have one of my characters' names, most likely the main character's name, start with the letter that we are doing this week, and it's gonna get a little more difficult when we get into the tough letters like Q and Y and Z and stuff, but we'll figure that out when we get there, because I know there's names that gotta start with that stuff. This week I'm doing the word dare, and usually I come up with the word for this challenge. It just kind of pops into my head. I was trying to think of something for D, and I was like, letter D, and then the word just pops in my head, and I'm like, okay, let's go with that. Sometimes I have to go a couple different letters. Like for C, I was gonna do cursed, and I was like, oh, cursed, that's a perfect letter, But then I kept thinking of werewolves, and I've already done a crap ton of werewolf stories. So I was like, okay, well, let's do captive. And then it kind of turned into captivating, and So sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. So I already got a paragraph started here, and my main character's name is Deirdre, which is actually a pretty cool name if you Google it. Google the name Deirdre. It has a lot of Irish folklore. I'm trying to figure out a name for my main character. I have a lot of problems with this. Usually I'm like, oh god, I've already done that name, and I don't like plain names. I like to do something kind of fun. I don't like using names like Steven or Mike or something like that. I don't know. Those are kind of plain names to me. No offense to anybody whose name is Mike and or Steven. It's just, a common name. I don't like to use common names. I'm very picky about my character names sometimes, so sorry about that. So sometimes when I'm writing, I write a little bit, and then I take a break. And usually it's when I'm stuck. And right now I'm stuck because I'm trying to think of a name for my guy character. It's probably hard to plan ahead. And now I'm looking through a magazine to see if I can find any names in here. February, April, said that half of the year will never be. Gatekeeper, seasons wait. So I took a break and I figured out the name I want for my guy character, which I've probably used before, but whatever. I'm naming my character Will. So back to writing. Dare you to kiss me? Bullshit, dear you know. Oh, surprise! Did you ever? So I think one of the hardest parts of when you begin a story, and I think it's mostly with short stories, is usually I don't have a plot in mind. I just let it take me where it needs to go. D for dare. I start writing and I just let the word take me where it wants to go. I just start writing and then suddenly I just come up with a plot on the way. And I usually do this for most of my short stories, and sometimes it comes out good, sometimes it doesn't come out good. Sometimes my stories are just what were you thinking? And I know that some of my stories aren't the best. But I think all authors have good stories and bad stories. And so I don't know if I should continue with that method. Like back in high school, I learned that you're supposed to do like an outline. And sometimes outlines are good. If you're doing a big story, like if you're about to write a whole book, I think an outline is a great idea. But for a short story, I like the idea of just letting my thoughts flow onto the page, the hypothetical page here, which is word starter on my computer. So, yeah. I still got a paragraph going here. I guess I'll read a little bit of it. I'm stuck at. So, I've got this character, Deirdre, like I told you, and he says that. I got, details and stuff, but he says, I dare you. This is like the biggest. My big sentence. I dare you to kiss me, Deirdre, and tell me that you don't feel something between us. Which I know sounds kind of like a cheesy romance film, but you know what? I like that, so I'm going with it. And they go through it, and she's like, I can't do that. I can't do that, Will, and you know why, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that's bullshit, Deidre, and you know it. And then he, grabs her hand, and yes, the story's gonna be romantic. Deal with it. Like, please, I dare. See, ooh, I found an error. Always find errors when you reread your story. That's why you're always supposed to reread your story. Unless you're crunched for time and you gotta upload your story before midnight, then you don't reread your story. And then you're like, oh my gosh, the errors. Writing all the way. What I like to do sometimes is when I'm writing my story, I like to sing out the words of the sentence before I start it again. I don't know. I'm just weird like that. Will standing in front of me. So right now I'm kind of like in the middle of a paragraph. I'm rereading it just to go through it again, make sure I like where the story's going. So far so good. My first paragraph is pretty long. I'm starting my second paragraph, kind of going into a backstory about my characters. Well, my characters, so you know a little bit about what's going on in the scene, because I'm starting the scene off where I'm throwing you into what's going on right now in the scene. I'm throwing you in to the scene, and then I'm going into a new paragraph, and I'm going into more of the backstory of what's going on between these two characters, so that that's four. Between these two characters, so that you know what's going on. I like to do this a lot. I think it's a fun way to write a story, is to throw you into it so you're wondering what's going on, and then I do a backstory, and then you kind of get together oh, okay, I see what's going on here. Personally, I like that. For short stories especially, I think it's a good tool to use. For longer stories, not so much. I like a little bit of background, unless it's like a prologue. It really depends on the story, though. I have to say, it really depends on the story. Okay, back to writing, darlings. So, sometimes I like to see where the story's going, and I kind of depend on if I want to make it a short story or a long story. I know they're technically short stories, but sometimes our short stories can get pretty long, and sometimes our short stories can be really short, and sometimes it depends on I think the story you're writing and how much time you have. I know it's true for me, Miranda. If we're running out of time, we're gonna cut that story down. And if we really like the story, we're gonna keep on writing it. But then there's some stories that you just think are more appropriate if they're shorter. So I don't know. So sometimes I'll be writing my story and I'll be in the middle of it, and I'm still in that phase where it's like, where am I going to take the story from here? And, sometimes it just comes to me. like how to end the story on a like crazy good note. So I have that right now. So right now I began my story with this scene of him daring her to kiss him and to tell him that she doesn't feel anything from that kiss. Right? So you're like, okay, and then so you get to the point where he's leaning in to kiss her, and that's kind of where that scene freezes. Okay, so we're frozen in time here. Then we go into her backstory. Okay, so we're going into the monologue where my main character Deidre is talking. So Deidre's talking to you, the reader, right now, and she's telling you about how a lot can happen in a moment between a kiss, and like for her, a moment between her and Will is so strong because she's so in love with him and he makes everything better. But then she feels something deep in the pit of her stomach and that's not right. And that's when I start a new paragraph telling you that Will had been married for 4 years already. He's married, okay? So you're like, oh shit, son, he's married and he's in love with her. Oh girl. Yeah, it's like an episode of Maury or something going on here. But no. Anyways, so she's going into the backstory of how she met him again and how he's married and stuff, and then he came over one night for dinner and he kissed her and like boom, that's when everything changes. And that's when I thought of the ending to my story, which you will hear about when I get done writing it. So let me get back to that. I think a really cool part of the story is like the beginning sentence and like the end sentence. I like to do that a lot for these challenges with the ABC challenge. I kind of like that. I don't know. So I'm gonna have like not really a strong first sentence, but a strong sentence in there that I already told you guys, and like a strong ending sentence that I'm gonna do. So I am pretty far into my story. I can already tell I'm gonna make it short this week because I don't really have too much of the backstory. Like, I don't have like the most fantastic backstory in the world for these characters. I'm relying more on like the sentences. Like, for me, what I want my readers to get from some of my stories is like, I want them to have like a deeper connection with some of my sentences. Like, I want you to end the story like thinking, ooh, I want kind of like a ooh feeling. I don't want you to really, like, some of my stories, I don't want you to care about what's going on in the middle, usually, like the backstory. Some backstories, I'm like, backstory. Sometimes I'm like, the backstory is the most important part. For this story, it's not the most important part. The most important part is the scene that is in the beginning between my two characters. Like, what's going on between them right now is important, not what happened before. It's what's going on now. The only reason I'm giving you a backstory now is so you know what the hell is going on. So you're not like left hanging like, what happened between them? Huh? But now you know, so now you have to kind of like get into the scene that's happening. So yeah, so now I've got my beginning paragraph and my middle paragraph, and I'm working on my end paragraph right now. So I just got done talking about Will and how he's married and how she just hates herself for what she's doing, like, and she's thinking about herself in the wife's shoes. What I kind of want is what my readers to put themselves in like the character's shoes. Like, what if you had to go through something like that? So I don't know. I kind of like doing that. I think it's fun. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of like tying in a sentence from earlier into my end sentence. I'm tying in a sentence from. Hold on a second. Let me check. It's either my middle or my beginning paragraph. Now I'm tying in a sentence from my beginning paragraph into my end paragraph. I think that's a cool way to wrap up your story too. That's, I think, something like if you're writing an essay. I think that's the thing you do when you write an essay sometimes, if I'm not mistaken. I have no clue. It's been a while since I've been in school, and since I'm not going to college right now for like English or anything, it's been a while. So I don't even remember how to write an essay. Ugh, essays. Essays. Ugh. See, I like writing fiction. I do not like writing essays. But I'm a writer. Anyways. Ha ha ha! That rhymed. Got my beginning, my middle, and my end paragraphs. So I got my story all done. It is short, but the reason I made it short is because for this story, I decided to not do a story. I decided to do a moment between two characters and what's happening between them. So that's how I would describe my story. I would say it's more of a moment, a glimpse into what could happen between two people in a situation like this, which is always interesting, and I think it's fun to play with that kind of stuff, and it's fun to build on sentences and characters and stuff, and I don't give you so much details about their lives or where they're at or the location and the setting. I just give you a moment between two characters. So I hope you enjoy my story for the week, and you kind of see what happens when I write. I know it's a lot of sitting here typing and listening to music and kind of just thinking, and I kind of tell you my thought process a little bit of what I'm thinking. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. If you don't, that's okay. You get to read a new one next week, because next week we're doing E. The letter E. Yeah. That's my E. Alright. Thanks, guys, for watching. Bye.